Perfect. So hello everyone and welcome to the Talking Stick Show. So on this show I am joined by Louise Heaven. Hello Louise.
Hi Dale, hi.
How are you doing today?
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, doing very well. And so how we ended up us two talking and coming on the show today. So I'm going to do my craniosacral journey tomorrow in Cornwall, and Louise sent a message about she's done her craniosacral journey. So I thought it'd be great to share Louise's story and insight about what craniosacral therapy is, because I'm still new to it, still about to learn the system. So before we start all of that, can you tell the listeners a bit about yourself, those who don't know you?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm a Reiki healer. I also run women's circles, and I do craniosacral therapy as well, alongside some holistic massage. So yeah, for me, it's really all about, there's not just one way to help people heal. It's actually really great to have a few different things in the toolbox, energetically and physically as well.
Outstanding. And what got you onto the healing journey then, Louise? What happened for you to be able to have the moment where you decided to go into all of these modalities?
Yeah, so I used to be incredibly skeptical about anything alternative, anything complementary. I thought it was a load of nonsense, a load of woo-woo. I was very much, science-based and Western medicine, until I had a couple of accidents, which ended with some chronic injuries. And Western medicine just couldn't help. Nothing was coming up on MRIs, and then they said, oh, we could do this operation, it might work, it might not. And I was actually at that point about to embark on a traveling trip. I was going traveling by myself for 6 months. There was no time to even have this operation or consider it. It was like, well, I'm just gonna have to go, keep taking all the painkillers and kind of hope for the best. And I then I went to see a reflexologist. It got to the point where I was like, I'll just try anything. So I went to see a reflexologist in Auckland, and she could obviously see that there was more underlying this than purely physical, that actually there was really a lot of emotions within all this chronic pain that I was holding. And she read to me parts from Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life. And my mind was blown, because everything that she was describing, like I had a hip injury, I had a shoulder injury, and the emotional causes behind them. And I was just blown away that she was just describing exactly actually how I've been feeling but not expressing. So I carried on my travels, and I ended up in Bali, and it was just this amazing, life-changing experience, where I really connected with spirit for the first time. And I just kept getting this message that I was a healer, and or that it was my mission to be a healer. Which, I was coming back to my job in the UK as like a marketing executive, and it was all a bit like, it was a totally different path, and one that I hadn't really considered before. And basically I went through this journey of healing myself first, and it was only after I've really done a lot of healing work on myself. And I really believe that as a healer, you often have to heal yourself before you can heal others. And that's obviously an ongoing journey as well. And then I ended up studying Reiki, then the massage, and then started my craniosacral training in 2019, which, as you'll know, it's a modular training, so I'm still on that pathway. But yeah, I love it, and it's great to integrate with other therapies as well.
Outstanding. And let's talk a little bit about. I think we got a bit of an echo. It's not. Yeah, it's fine now. It had a little bit of an echo then. But so let's talk a little bit about you going through that process of realizing that you've got to heal yourself. And this is such a big thing coming up for a lot of people. A lot of people I've talked to, myself, has happened to, that you have to have the responsibility, because sometimes we do get the message we are a healer and all we want to do is just go out and heal people. But then we've got to kind of home in ourselves and really look in deep within. So what's your advice for people for healing themselves? How do they start? Say if someone really wants to start working on themselves, what would be a starting point for them?
I think for me, the main thing is slowing down. It's really slowing down and listening in. And one of the key concepts in craniosacral therapy is this concept of the inner physician. And you could also refer to it as kind of your inner wisdom, your inner healer, whatever you want to call it. But I really believe that within all of us, we know what we truly need to heal. So it's really going inside, listening. So meditation was one of the first things that I started to use as a means to listening in, to checking in, and actually checking in with that inner wisdom. And when you kind of get attuned with that, you start to realize what works for you, what doesn't work for you, whether it's situations, whether it's something emotional that you're holding on to, whether it's foods that don't agree with you or foods that are really good and healing for you. So I would say it is really about that slowing down, taking that time and listening in and knowing that actually, I mean, it's amazing going to see healers. And I think that we're obviously doing really important work, but also just checking in with yourself and knowing that you've got everything you need within you to heal. And it's actually as healers that we're more kind of unlocking that for others and allowing them to do that work, like creating that safe space.
Outstanding. And for me, it's for looking at that journey of saying I've got to be a healer and I've got to do the work on myself, then I feel the next level of responsibility comes when you've got clients coming at you and you've got to maintain your life as well as helping others. And what are some of your ways on disconnection? Because I'm always interested and always learning new ways of having the separation and being balanced with the overload of working on other people's stuff and not being too burnt out.
Yeah, it's definitely a really tricky line. So definitely like boundaries, having that boundary with clients, taking a break between, and I think also just knowing when you need to take some time off so you don't get that burnout. I mean, especially now, I mean, personally, I'm taking some time out right now because there's been things going on in my life and I need to be in a good enough place. And I'm going through a journey with grief. And I need to hold that space for me before I can hold that space for others. But I would also say grounding. Grounding is super important. And this is something that I'm sure you're already doing this anyway through your energy work, but it's something that you're, on the craniosacral training is a really big thing. Because as well as working physically, it's also working very much emotionally and energetically as well. So keeping yourself physically grounded, like 2 feet on the floor, and then envisaging that energy that's coming out of the patient, the client, potentially actually grounding down through you and leaving you, so you're not left with that energetic residue. But yeah, it's a hard one because I think as healers, we want to heal, we want to help others, but it's knowing that you've got to have a full cup before you can help anyone else.
And that's it for me, learning that and realizing that I can't give my core energy out to clients, or I can't give my full power away because I'll now be burnt out. So I've got to kind of use my muscles in a sense on holding the space, but then always having that once a week where I go in, do my inner work, because I feel that trauma can sometimes come out, and to have that than dealing with the clients. And I really respect what you're doing in the sense of you're having some time out to deal with that personal stuff, because that's the responsibility I do feel that healers have to take on when they know to say no and they know I need time now to recuperate and rejuvenate. I think it's very responsible and an outstanding thing to do.
Yeah, I think it's knowing yourself and having that toolkit, and like you said, doing your own inner work. So that's something else that through the craniosacral training that they will emphasize is doing the work on yourself. So I regularly see a craniosacral therapist and do that inner work, and they kind of say the more you can leave of your stuff on the table, the more you can help others, because you get rid of that stuff that's going to potentially trigger you, that unhealed trauma in you. Because there's definitely times when patients can come to you and you kind of have their stuff can trigger your stuff if it's unhealed in you. So yeah, definitely looking after yourself. And time in nature is so beautiful, like just being like in the woods with the trees and that really grounding energy, and kind of like physically putting it back in the earth, like getting your hands on the ground is just amazing.
And how has lockdown been for you and yourself and your adjustments? It's helped me kind of gather a lot more of myself and understand a lot more of my unhealed parts, because I've got so much time to focus on that. So for me, lockdown, even though it's got its limitations, it's that there are where you feel a bit stuck, a bit frustrated. Sometimes I do feel that with the lockdown, but at the end and looking at it from hindsight, I do feel that there's so much potentials for people to really have some time to figure out what do I need to do to grow and go forward.
Definitely. I mean, it's just such a bit, I just feel there's this huge shift, this huge awakening as a collective. I mean, we're going through so much that is very difficult stuff, but it's kind of a bit of a reckoning, I think. It's, for me, it's, we've all been so busy, and I am guilty of this, making plans, like burning myself out at points because I just want to live life to the fullest. But actually, this has really forced everyone to slow down. And like I was saying before, that's the first step of healing, is actually slowing down. And we've all been forced to like really evaluate our lives, and just, it's hopefully a once in a lifetime opportunity to actually really evaluate what's important. And what I'm hearing from a lot of people, and what I'm feeling myself as well, is actually a much greater sense of connection with nature, with the seasons, with actually slowing down. And I've been going on like pretty much the same walk every day for months, but actually each walk's been different because, especially like coming into spring, like noticing all the changes, actually being more aware of where we are in the year and in the cycles, and more like tracking the moon cycles as well. I mean, that's something I was already very aware of, but there just does seem to be this recognition as well, like what's really important, and actually people turning away from kind of consumerism so much,
Yeah.
and being so invested in their kind of jobs and careers, and actually realizing that time with loved ones, time with family, time in nature is actually far more important. Like that's true abundance. It's not like whatever your paycheck is. It's actually like your time, your freedom to spend how you want with your loved ones. So I feel there's going to be a big shift. I feel it's already starting with people wanting to actually change their lifestyle, and that goes for me as well. Of not wanting to rush around and actually considering like, well, do I actually ever want to go abroad? Or do I actually recognize that there's amazing places close to home that are actually just as amazing to explore?
That's it. And for me, it was so hard because before lockdown, I had my business, trying to manifesting my business, building the clients, doing this event, and I was quite stressed out because I felt like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders. And lockdown came for me, and it kind of made me, even though the frustration was there and the stuff I needed to work on was there, I took the step back and realized how much we are controlled in this in that feeling of the machine's always moving and you've got to move with the machine, you've got to pay your bills, you've got to do this and that. And it gave me a real sense of how the world is in that controlled mode. And like you were talking about the awakening, for some of the humanity going through the process of realizing that their own self-mastery, for me it was a big wake-up call for how really control has deeply come into my life. When I was a kid, we had to work when we were 16, had to provide full-time jobs, and I feel like it's given people the opportunity to be self-employed if they want to go down that route and really reevaluate their future for the better of themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it's a lot around freedom, like you say, like the self-mastery, because there is just this element of control. And it was kind of a different path for me, but similar in that there was very much a push to get really good grades at school, to go to university, to get the good job, to climb the corporate ladder, and a lot of really ego in that. Like a lot of ego in, oh well, I'll have this job and, you know, this career and what that says to other people, but not actually considering, well, how does it actually feel? And for me, it's a lot about getting back to how things actually feel.
Yeah.
And maybe it doesn't look the done thing, or it isn't what society's expectations are, whatever that is, but actually, does it feel good to you?
Yeah.
Because it's in like taking on all those societal expectations and all those like how it should look that brings with it all the stress, like the corporate job, the stress, the burnout, and really takes, in my experience, kind of takes you away from who you really are and what's really important to you. And for me, healing's actually less about changing things ultimately about who you are, but it's actually remembering who you are and actually stripping off all those layers of stuff that doesn't serve you, whatever that is.
And it's really cool that you say that, because there's a guy who I listen to, one of my teachers who mentors me, is he was talking about, we're not going into the Great Awakening, we're going into the Great Remembering. And that
Yes.
you saying that then just triggered that for me, that we've gone past, we're awakening, but we're not really awakening, we're just remembering who we are, past, present and future.
Yeah. And something that I set intentions every New Year's Eve. I sit down. I mean, I do a lot of intentioning and manifesting, but especially that just always feels to me, it's my birthday as well. It always feels like
Is
a
it your
real.
birthday today?
No,
Oh,
no.
happy birthday. Oh, sorry, I thought you said his birthday. I'm hearing things now.
No, on New Year's Eve. New
Oh,
Year's Eve
sorry.
is my birthday, so it always feels like a really potent time
Okay.
to set intentions. And the last couple of years, I've also kind of had like a word or a couple of words come up for me. And last year, so the start of 2020, before we knew we were going into all of this, it was home. That was really the word that was coming up for me. And I was trying to manifest a physical home at the time, which happened, but also this feeling of coming home and coming home to myself. And then interestingly, we were then obviously in lockdown for a lot of last year. I'm not saying I manifested that into happening, but it's funny that it then became this whole stay home message. So that to me is really what healing is about. It's coming home and coming back to you, to your truth.
Outstanding. And so for yourself, so let's talk a little bit about craniosacral itself then. So what got you onto the craniosacral therapy path?
So it was through having craniosacral therapy, actually. And this was one of the first things I did when I started to think, oh, there might be more for healing than going to your doctor and getting prescribed some painkillers or an operation or whatever. I was starting to recognise that there was this other side. So I was living in Leeds at the time, and I went to see a craniosacral therapist because I'd heard that it was good. I'd had a head injury, and I'd also had an injury to like the lower spine. And I'd heard that it was really good for anything like spinal. So I had sort of back pain, hip pain, headaches that were constant, like for months and months. And just through Googling, I was really just kind of opening up at that point to like, what is going to help me? I'd seen a lot of physios, I've seen osteopaths. It kind of helped, but not really. They'd sort of, you know, I'd feel better for a few days and then it would come back. So I think I'd seen pretty much every physio in the Leeds area. I was really at my wit's end. So I was like, right, I'm going to try something different. And I found this lady, and I saw her a couple of times, and it really seemed to shift something. A lot of tears, a lot of crying. I saw colours. I didn't really know what was going on, but I just knew that this was something that seemed to really work. So
Just 1 second.
So trying to figure out kind of what was happening. And so she then recommended me a book, which is one of the course books that you posted about. And
there we go. Sorry, we had a bit of a breakup of the sound.
Okay.
So I turn the video off, then turn it back on. Usually that works. Yeah, it's back to normal. So continue on. Sorry about that.
No problem. So yeah, so it was this book that you posted about, the Inner Physician and You, because I was just like, so with me, I was just like, what are you doing, Louisa? This is some kind of magic, because I don't feel like you do a lot. It wasn't like going to the osteo where they really wrench you about and you can hear things popping, stuff like that. But I knew something was happening. Again, I've seen the colours, a lot of emotions coming out. So she recommended this book, and I went, well, she gave me her copy, and I went away and read it. And I think I said to you, I read it in about 2 sittings, over 2 evenings. I was just completely hooked. It just really drew me in. You know, when something just really just clicks with you. And I was just like, this is amazing. And I just then started thinking, this is really awesome. I want to know more. But it wasn't for another year or two, I think, until the time was right and everything, that I actually then started to learn it. And then my teacher was Caroline Barrow, who runs the Upledger Institute down in Brighton. And, you know, sometimes you can go on training courses and you just have like moments where you can kind of phase out a bit, and you're just a bit like, oh, you know, you're kind of waiting for the end of the day and not really that engaged. I was just engaged like the whole way through, and she's a great teacher as well, and so much passion that came through. And yeah, that's really where it started with me, with having the treatment myself. And I think, you know, we went around the room at the start saying like how we'd heard about cranial, like why we're there, how we'd got there, and from a lot of people it was that they had experienced it themselves and experienced the magic.
Outstanding. And when I had my first session, it felt like the most relaxed I've ever felt. It was like there's just a feeling of going so deep with the brainwaves going lower. And after I did that, I was like, right, I really want to be able to do this as a practice. Because let's talk a little bit about so what does it help with? So for anybody out there who's unsure of what craniosacral therapy is, if you give us like a synopsis of what it's about and what it can help.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of what you would experience going to have cranio, it's a hands-on therapy, but it's incredibly gentle. So it's about 5 grams of pressure, which is like the weight of a 20 pence piece, which is just absolutely nothing. But it's actually, it's sometimes, well, often in life, it's actually the more gentle things can be the most profound. So through this really delicate touch, the practitioner engages with the tissues of the body, and all the way deeply into the most like central part of the body, which is the craniosacral system, which is everything from the kind of top of your skull down to the base of your spine. So the skull and the brain and the spine are all encased in like it's called like dura. It's like a connective tissue, and then within that you've got the cerebro spinal fluid, and really that's what we're working with, and looking for kind of blockages, disturbances that have accumulated through trauma, which might be, like in my case, it was a sudden blunt trauma, or it can be through bad posture, or through like emotions as well that are being held really deeply in the body. So we're looking for those disturbances or blockages, and then working very, very gently to release them. But there's also the energetic side. So we're working like with the physical side, but also with the energetic side. So removing energetic blockages as well, or, you know, putting energy in where it's needed, or taking energy out where it doesn't need to be there, basically. Yeah, that's pretty much it. But it works on a lot of levels. the physical, the emotional, and the energetic. Like for me, I've done, I do massage, which is much more, pretty much purely physical. The Reiki, which is very much energetic and emotional as well. But for me, this is just an amazing modality because it works across all levels, and it works with the intelligence of the body as well. So we're also connecting to that inner physician, and it's more about creating the conditions for healing to happen. So as much as there are kind of set moves within craniosacral therapy, which you'll learn like a 10-step protocol with like 10 different kind of set moves, but actually a lot of it, you do those set moves, but it's also listening to what the body needs. And often it can come in the form like unwinding. So I've worked on people's necks before, and then their head just moves of its own accord, and you're just being there as that space holder and just letting it do what it needs to do, and really respecting and working with the body's natural intelligence.
And for me, I had my whiplash on my neck. She picked it up, I didn't tell her, and she said, "Oh, your neck's out of alignment." So she had to like stop. I remember her saying, "I'm going to stop it and retrain it to go a certain way because some of it was out of alignment." So that blew, like, I was like, wow. I was like, she could pick it up straight away where my trauma was, and she touched it, and it reminded me, and I got all the stuff from the car crash like come back to me. So there was a big trauma release in the session, which was really, really good.
It works so amazingly well with trauma, definitely. For me, it's been the most profound modality that I've tried. And I think I've tried most of them. Although there's so many modalities. Someone the other day mentioned something to me, have you heard of it? I hadn't. I was like, wow, there's just so much out there now, isn't there? It's amazing.
Yeah, there is. That's it. And yeah, my Gabrielle, my wife, got it done, and it feels as well for birthing trauma as well. I've looked into it, and a few people have experienced where they've had negative births, so that when they've come into the body, the spirits come in. There's kind of a bit of a misalignment, and Craniosacral was great for bringing it all back into place and putting like Humpty Dumpty back together in a sense.
Yeah. Do you mean in terms of her giving birth or her having been born herself?
Yeah, so having been born herself, there was a process which you called is it the forceps birth? I can't really remember, but it's a brutal thing. What they do is where they go in with the clamp and they clamp the head and they pull it out, and there was all of huge, all that the brain and how it went in, the spirit went into the body was all kind of a bit out of line. So the craniosacral kind of brought the spirit more back into the body, which was really cool.
I was also a forceps baby.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely a lot of that, and it's amazing for babies as well. I've not done the training yet. It's it's obviously a more advanced training, but in time I would love to do that because I know quite a few friends whose babies have had various different issues, and it's been really amazing. And babies that just won't settle.
Okay.
That colic as well, because it's it's such a stressful experience coming into the world. It's a trauma, and because babies' heads are obviously, the skull is so malleable, especially like when they're coming into the world, and that has such a big effect on the whole craniosacral system. So a lot of what we work with is around the head and with the different bones of the head. So kind of Western medicine tells us that the skull is completely fused, like you get to a certain age and it's completely fused, but actually it's not. There's still the sutures between all the separate bones, and when something happens, some kind of trauma, and they get out of line, that's then when kind of tension and dysfunction and blockages, that can be one way that it comes in. Definitely through stress, when you can feel it all in here. We do work with the jaw as well, and also inside the mouth to access different parts of the skull. So it's all like figuring out where that blockage is. And
oh, go on, you go.
Yeah, thank you. So I was going to say, so one thing that Cranio is really amazing for, is vertigo, or like balance issues. So I've had a client who had really, really bad vertigo, to the point of, you know, like actually like throwing up and having to just spend hours just laid down and not being able to move or anything. And Western medicine couldn't do anything, like just tablets that kind of worked, but kind of didn't really actually fix it. But actually it was a dysfunction of the craniosacral rhythm, and with the bones that are kind of on the side of the head. And the rhythm, so you work with the rhythm as well of this fluid, where it should be like in line, it was completely off. It was just completely off kilter. And after one session, they're fine. And, you know, kind of a checkup every 3 months, and it's absolutely fine. Like nothing like what it was before. Like a little, once this client gets a little bit dizzy, then he'll come back for a session and then sorted for a few months. And I hope in time we can get to the emotional, whatever is actually causing that to keep recurring. But certainly on one level, it's definitely helped. So yeah.
That's really good. And vertigo's a lot of stress, isn't it? There's a lot when there's vertigo involved. There's just a major amount of stress on you, and I can totally see why that changes that, because when you're in getting it all done, it's like a feeling of warmth and all this. Oh, it's incredible. Like it really, straight away when I did it, I was like, I've not had anything like this before, and I was like, right. I was like, it was a plan. I was like, in the future when I'm when everything else is manifested, that's the next stage for me to grow myself, so on and so forth.
Amazing. And are you planning to integrate with your psychic surgery work and your Reiki? I know you have a few modalities.
Yeah, so I think what I'm going to do is I'll offer like a 2 hour session, like an hour of psychic surgery, an hour of cranial. And I think I'm going to go separate, where I'm going to not be do the craniosacral less marketing with spirituality, so I can reach more people with the problems who aren't into the spiritual path. So I'm going to incorporate it into the psychic surgery, but as well set up the craniosacral as wanting to have, you know, a separate thing, but I can incorporate them together. It's a tough one. It's a tough question that I think what will happen in time, I'll be able to process it and I'll understand what if I want to do it. Or I do think it'll be a nice blend. Say if you did Reiki for the first bit, then you did the craniosacral at the end. I think that's a really good mix.
Yeah, definitely. For me, something that I would do is like call in the Reiki energy and do the cranial, but kind of calling in that energy as well, because cranial is already energy work and it is calling in the universal energy.
Yeah.
But there's not that kind of attunement. It's more that intention to asking the body, like, and feeling into whether it needs more energy, in which case you're kind of pulling in that universal energy, or whether it needs to release some energy, in which case you're then that kind of channel to then ground that energy out of that body. But I found that on the training, there were people from so many different backgrounds. You know, there was a lot of people from maybe more of like a physio, osteo, chiropractor background. And for them, some of the energy stuff, I think, was quite an eye-opener. That was the kind of part that they had to really get their head around. They're very used to working like hands-on with bodies, and, you know, they know all the anatomy inside out. And then there's kind of the other people who were more from like the energetic side, and like shamanic practitioners, and kind of Reiki yoga instructors, probably more on that side as well, where like the energy side is like, yeah, I can get that, but actually it's more like the anatomy and the more like physical side of things that's something new to get used to. So it's really interesting to see that there's a lot of people coming to this, and how it kind of bridges that gap really nicely between that very physical healing and physical therapy and that kind of energetic, more holistic kind of way of looking at things.
And it's great that you say that, because there's such a nice blend of, say, say if you want to see a chiropractor, there's a lady who I go to see who actually works at a chiropractor 1 day a week doing cranial. So the chiropractors really see it as such a big difference doing the chiropractor and doing the cranial. So it's nice to have that the anatomy and say the physiology of all that kind of everything connected in the way that the spirit and the science are kind of merging a little bit, which is bloody rare, isn't it? It's very
Yeah,
rare.
absolutely. And I think there's a lot of stuff that, you know, Dr. Upledger back in the day was talking about that really wasn't accepted by Western medicine and Western science, and so much that really a lot of different you know, even back to like Ayurveda and you know, traditional Chinese medicine, all these things that like this was all known for so long. But I think it goes back to that remembering. Actually, we're re-remembering that. We've gone so far down this path of Western medicine, but actually now we're remembering, and it's becoming more integrated, because there's obviously a huge place for Western medicine, but then it's not the whole story. It's kind of going back to that. We've gone out of balance.
Yeah.
And it's this coming back into balance where we've gone very much down this masculine route of the, you know, like we were saying about the jobs and that being really important and all this really kind of external, outward looking. But actually now we're kind of, I hope as a society, coming back into balance more and looking inwards and recognizing that there's more to life.
And teeth as well. I wanted to talk to you about teeth for grinding teeth and stuff like that. What's the because you do a lot of the teeth work, don't they, in cranial? Can you talk a little bit about the teeth and all around the teeth area? And because a lot of people have issues with grinding the teeth or jaw problems.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I've had that myself as well. It's somewhere that there's obviously so much can get held here. So something that we work with in Craniosacral is the avenue of expression. So a lot of what we hold here and all through here, or through the throat and the throat chakra, is things that haven't been expressed because maybe we've been taught, you know, as a child that actually you don't express those big emotions and you keep it in and you don't say what you think. So we work with this avenue of expression, and it's really opening that up and getting rid of a lot of the emotion that's in this whole area. But we'd also work with like the jaw, which again is like all part of this avenue of expression, and releasing a lot of the tension that's right here. So it's just very gently, where the bones kind of really get clenched together, it's actually like physically very, very gently just maneuvering them apart. There's also the internal mouth work, which I haven't trained in yet. That's the next thing that I'm going to be training in. Obviously, everything's been put on hold. But yeah, hopefully later this year.
Is that where they go in with the teeth and they go down? And yeah, I think I've had that done.
I've had that done, and yeah, there's so much that gets held here. So I'm excited for that, and to learn more about that, definitely.
Outstanding. And so for your future, what's on the cards for you? So you're going to extend and go more into the craniosacral journey. Is there anything else coming up for you in the future?
Yeah, the other thing, well, I'm doing my yoga teacher training. So I started doing that purely because I wanted to deepen my own practice. But I actually had a moment of realization in the last weekend of training that actually I do want to teach. So that's something that's coming up. And then I run women's circles. So those have been purely online, but doing my first actually in-person one, because I trained in that last year, and it's obviously all been on Zoom. But that's coming up around the summer solstice up in Pickering. So I'm really excited to get out there and really start. I've built like an online community, but then starting to build that like physical community. And I feel like connecting others is a big part of my path.
Outstanding, and it's great to speak to you today. And we should have another chat when we've done a bit further down along, and we'll kind of go over things and expand on everything. But Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on the show today, and it's exciting that you've got a lot of things coming up, and you're really coming into your power and acknowledging your responsibility here. It's lovely to see.
Thank you. And yeah, we should definitely catch up once you've done your training and I've done my next round of training, and I can go a bit deeper into the mouth work and everything around that. So, yeah.
Yeah, that'll be great, and I look forward to doing it on my children as well. That's another thing. My son's autistic, so his hips are very, that for some reason, I think because he produces a lot more adrenaline than he should usually do, so his hips are a bit wider and they've grown a bit different. So it'd be interesting to see if you heard anything or witnessed that with children at all, with how they grow, to kind of put it all back into place.
Not personally, but I have read case studies of it being really helpful, and definitely speak to the teacher on the course because I'm sure they will have loads of experience with that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's amazing. Even you'll learn a technique that you use at the start and the end, where you basically it kind of resets the body. And this is probably the point where, like at the start, you suddenly felt that like real calm. So it basically it's like rebooting the system, and it really like brings that calm. So even a few minutes of that is such an amazing therapy, just to calm everything and allow the systems to have that reset.
Thank you, outstanding. And how can people get a hold of you for sessions, or what's your website?
Yeah, so my website is louiseheaven.co.uk. Also on Instagram and Facebook. So yeah, you can find me there just at Louise Heaven Healing.
Thank you. And it'll all be under the link as well in the description, all the links to her website. So thank you so much, Louise, and I'll look forward to connecting to you in the future. I'll get in touch when I've started and gone further on my cranial journey as well.
Absolutely. I'm so excited for you. It's been great to connect.
It's really, really great to meet you. And thank you everyone for watching the show. I really appreciate you. And yeah, thank you everyone. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Bye.